Call the roll.
Chair Baxley,
Here.
Vice Chair Tadeo, Senator Berman, Senator Bracy, Senator Bradley, Senator Broxton, Senator Gaynor,
Here.
Senator Garcia, Senator Polsky. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Please silence all electronic devices. Anyone wishing to speak before the committee should complete an appearance form and hand it to a member of the sergeant's office. Should you select to waive your speaking time, your position will be included in the committee meeting records. I will tell you, the way our schedule's packed, you should plan on probably 1-minute presentations to make sure we get through. We're trying to measure time, space versus how many people want to speak. So I'll just give you that warning so you're not trying to replan your script for a longer presentation. Okay, we have a full agenda today. I'm going to be pretty tight on the time management, as I've just mentioned. We're going to first take up the bills in order of their appearance on the agenda, and then we will move to appointments. We will have 3 appointments appearing in person today, which we will separate and take one by one so that you can have discussion on those. So now we will first take up tab 1, committee substitute for Senate Bill 1078 on soil and water conservation districts by Senator Hudson. Senator Hudson, you are recognized to explain the bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Senate Bill 1078 provides that new soil and water districts must be subdivided into 5 single-member districts, subdividing by existing county commission or school board boundaries. It provides for staggered terms for these supervisors. To qualify to serve on the governing board of a district, they must be an eligible voter who resides within the number of subdivision from which he or she is elected and must work in farming or animal husbandry. And Mr. Chairman, there's an amendment.
Senator Hudson, you're recognized. Well, let's see. Are there any questions on the bill, or you we'll hold till we get the amendment? Don't mind, then we'll take up the amendment.
Question.
Oh, you have a question on the bill. You're recognized, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you getting rid of soil and water districts, Senator Hudson?
You're recognized to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was the originally filed bill that corresponds with the House bill. In the first committee, I chose to move to keeping soil and water districts, so we're not going to get rid of them, but focus on who is actually qualified to run for those districts.
And is that pretty much the subject of your amendment?
Yes, sir.
Does that help?
Yeah, so follow up. Is that the intention, though, with the House bill? Are you planning to take up the House bill when we get to the floor? And will getting rid of soil and water districts be a part of your proposal?
Thank you. You're recognized to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've worked with several senators on the Senate version of the bill, so my intention is to send the Senate version over to the House.
Okay. So, since that's the big difference, let's take up Amendment Barcode 216686 by Senator Hudson. Senator, you're recognized to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman. I got several good questions from my colleagues in the previous committee, so this is an amendment that clarifies some of those questions or alludes to some of those questions. First, it revises the qualification for supervisors of soil and water districts. They must be eligible voter to subside from which they're elected and actively involved in or retired after 15 years of being engaged in agriculture per that statute 570-02, which is a definition in Florida statute of agriculture. It wasn't clearly defined in the bill, so we have done that. Next, it requires candidates to have a background in agriculture and ensures they will be effective supervisors. Soil and land conservation policies and practices have a significant impact on the industry, so that I believe it was a good thing to make sure that we ensure that with agriculture. And lastly, the amendment will allow candidates to run when a subdivision does not have an eligible candidate 1 week before qualifying. It opens it up to eligible candidates that are at large. There was a question about the urban districts, if there wasn't a farmer on there or somebody that could represent, so it would open it up to at large for those if someone did not qualify. That was the amendment to address the concerns in the last committee.
Okay, are there questions on the amendment? Senator Bracy?
Thank you. What's the impetus for the bill? I know we're on the amendment, but what are we trying to address?
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a great question. So back when this was created in statute, it was really around the Dust Bowl times, and the the genesis of the soil and water supervisors were to help in education of farmers and bringing grants down to farmers. Since then, I'm talking with different agriculture folks, people that represent these boards from all over the state now. Some of them are engaging in practices that aren't soil and water specific, where it deals to farmland. So instead of getting rid of them, the idea was to get back to what they're supposed to be doing, their mission, and the farmers within these districts strongly encourage that.
Can you give me an example of what kind of activities that are going on that you're trying to discourage?
You're recognized.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There was an article printed where a supervisor down in South Florida said they use their position for climate change. An individual came up and spoke against this bill in the last committee that said they use their position to do air quality and air pollution to the public. Their statewide board met without the farmers, most of the farmers present, and they did a policy initiative. I just spoke to the president about this, a policy initiative against his better judgment and advisement to make their one policy decision that they asked for the Florida legislature to do, which is ban balloons from being released in the state. That is clearly outside the purview of the Soil and Water Commission.
Any other questions?
Last question. So the intent now is to make sure that whoever's running for these offices has, well, among other things, but one of the main things is that they have some agricultural experience before they run.
You're recognized.
The intent of the legislation is to make sure they have the farmer's best interest at heart, which is what they were designed to do. And so the best way to do that, rather than getting rid of them, was to say you qualify as a farmer or someone in the industry or someone that is retired from the industry.
Okay. Any other questions on the amendment? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if someone was a civil engineer, they wouldn't be they wouldn't qualify under your amendment as a person who could be on the board?
You're recognized to respond.
If they did not practice in agriculture, have green belted land, or work for someone in agriculture, then they would not be able to qualify.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Senator Berman. You're recognized.
If someone went to and got a degree from an agricultural college, would that qualify them to be on the board, or they'd have to meet more requirements than just having a degree from an agricultural college?
You're recognized to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The definition of 570.02 in agriculture, it says means the science and art of production of plants and animals useful to humans, and then it goes into list all these different things, aquaculture, horticulture, floriculture. So I would probably have to ask staff for more of an opinion on that, whether that science based on the definition would qualify, but it would be something I'd love to look into for you and maybe address in the next stop.
And one final question.
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you consider changing the name of these boards? Because right now they're called Soil and Water Conservation Districts. And it sounds like you're eliminating a lot of the water conservation. So did you consider changing the name to Soil and Agricultural Districts?
You're recognized to respond.
No, I have not, but I will say, Senator Berman, that the Soil and Water Conservation Districts functions as a whole, and what they deal with some of these programs like BMAPs and conservation of water, that is still within their purview, and we are not taking that away from them. So they still have to follow what their mission is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the amendment? Okay. Any appearance forms for the amendment? No. Is there any debate on the amendment?
I'll debate.
You recognize Senator Berman for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this goes to what I just said in the last question. These are called Soil and Water Conservation District. These are non-taxing districts. They are non-paid. Things evolve in our state, just like our Constitution evolves. These districts have evolved. They probably were started as agriculture, but they have moved on. And as you just said, it is still within their purview to be doing things like BMAPs and things like that. So I would like to see people who are civil engineers and others with backgrounds in that area be allowed to continue to serve on these boards. So I'm going to be against this bill. I don't see why we have to change the requirements at this point. I think they serve a purpose, and we should continue to have them in our state.
Okay, you're recognized. Anyone else in debate? Yes.
Yeah, I would just agree.
Senator Bracy, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just agree. I think we may be locking out some people that would have some something good to add to these positions. And so I appreciate you clarifying and taking some of the concerns of the other committee members and the other committees, but I won't be supporting it. I just think it's an added barrier that's unnecessary. And so with that, I will not support it.
Thank you. Recognizing in debate, Senator Gaynor, you're recognized. Debate on the amendment.
Senator, I just want to ask you, what does this do to the existing districts and that we already have set up? Now, what's it going to do that we don't get now?
Okay, we'll revert to a question on it, if you'll address that.
That's fine, Chairman. Thank you, Senator Gaynor, for that question. It's good to see you back as well. What this does for existing, how they're structured, in terms of their duties and performances, they still have to do the same thing. I'm not taking any power or ability away from that. What it will do in the future is say you must be in agriculture, and we lift that definition out, work for someone in agriculture, or be retired from agriculture in order to qualify to run for these seats.
Okay, you have another question?
Yeah, one more.
All right, sir, go ahead.
If you married, like most farms stay in the family and all, and if you married somebody, whether you were a man or a woman, how would that change your ability to serve, as we're talking about here today?
You're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Most folks that I know in the farming industry that are married, both spouses work on the farm. But if for some reason a spouse did not work on the farm and wanted to serve and did not have that 15 years of experience or be working on the farm at that time, they would not be able to qualify.
Okay.
How did you arrive at that kind of conclusion that they wouldn't be allowed to work on the farm?
You're recognized to respond.
Thank you, Chairman. They could still work on the farm, Senator Gator. All I'm saying, to qualify for a supervisor position as a candidate, you have to meet certain means. So if that spouse was working on the farm as an employee or working as a business owner, because they both own the business, which is generally the case, that spouse would be able to qualify. If for some reason that spouse did not work on the farm at all, or wasn't a business owner, or didn't qualify because they don't live in a green belted area, then they would not be able to qualify under those provisions.
Okay. Anything, we'll move back to debate. Is there any more debate on the amendment? Okay, you're recognized to close on the amendment. Senator Hudson.
I'll waive close and save debate for the end, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All in favor of the amendment say yay. Yay. All opposed say nay. The amendment is adopted. We're back on the bill as amended. Are there questions now on the bill as amended? Okay, are there any? Yes, you're recognized for questions on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What happens to supervisors who are currently in the positions if they don't have this background? Are they grandfathered in?
You're recognized to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, ma'am, they're not. When it comes time to qualify, we have put in an attestation where they would have to sign their name and say they're duly able to hold office and have the appropriate information that would make them eligible.
Okay, are any other questions? Okay. Are there any appearance forms on the bill? I'm sorry, was there another question? You're recognized, Senator Tadeo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wouldn't the abolishment of these entities jeopardize the distribution of tens of millions of federal dollars earmarked for conservation enhancement projects?
You're recognized to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're not abolishing any of these districts. That's the House bill.
Okay. All right, is there any debate on the bill as amended? Anyone in debate? Seeing no debate, Senator Hudson's recognized to close on the bill as amended. Oh, I'm sorry, we skipped appearances.
You're trying to get me out of here early, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying. I know you got places to go and people to see. All right, Susan Smith against. and is waiving speaking. Is that correct? Thank you. Karen Woodall, Earth Justice, waiving against. Okay. Robbie Sumner, waiving against. From Okeechobee. Trish Neely, League of Women Voters of Florida, waiving against. Okay. Jonathan Weber, Florida Conservation Voters, waiving against. Audrey Coopers from Okeechobee, speaking against. You're recognized. And next will be Elisa Jean Schaefer, speaking against. If you'll be in the, come up and be in the hold for it. You're next. Okay, go ahead. You're recognized.
Chairman, Senators, I'm here on behalf of Okeechobee Soil and Water Conservation District, and we stand by our position that supervisors should serve at large to better serve their constituents. This bill is of special concern to us because 3 of our 5 supervisors currently reside in the same voting district, and these supervisors represent dairy, animal feed manufacturing, and row crops, in which are obvious diversification of expertise regardless of their residential location. Subdivisions also pose complications when it comes to districts that encompass more than one county, and those counties with largely urban populations with no farmers in certain voting districts. Having potential candidates wait until a week before the qualification period ends seems to add a burden on election staff and to those who are willing to serve. Chapter 582 states, the purpose of the Soil and Water Conservation Districts to provide assistance, guidance, and education to landowners, land occupiers, the agricultural industry, and the general public in implementing land, water, and resource protection practices. The ag industry is only one of the 4 identified groups. The amendment as proposed stipulates to qualify, the candidate must be actively engaged in or retired after 15 years of being engaged in agricultural, as defined as Statute 570. Why is it that a person who is in their current year of farming can qualify, but yet you have to have 15 years of experience if you are retired? Additionally, the statute definition of agriculture still excludes constituents who are agronomists, hydrologists, ecologists, accountants, educators, and others that may be passionate about conservation and sustainable food production. All have expertise to aid in a diverse board. Why are we placing such stringent requirements on those who are willing to volunteer their time? Last year, Florida District was awarded a national grant to start a farming mentorship program to support new farmers. The Board of Supervisors responsible for this initiative included people with backgrounds in political science and criminal justice. Great things can be done for agriculture without excluding people with non-agricultural backgrounds. We ask that you reconsider allowing supervisors to be elected and still serve at large, and also allow that anyone who's willing to volunteer their time for the conservation of our natural resources to be allowed to serve.
Thank you very much. Elisa Jean Schaefer, you're recognized. She's speaking against.
Thank you, Chair, Committee. My name is Alyssa Jean Schaefer. I'm here in my elected capacity. I currently serve on the Broward Soil and Water Conservation District, and I am opposed to this bill. I want to state that agriculture is obviously an incredibly valuable treasure that we have, and it's a resource that must be protected. It's in the best interest of both the industry and the state as a whole that we do everything to make sure that it is done in a way that is sustainable, and that is at the core of the mission of these conservation districts. As was already discussed, these districts were created during the Dust Bowl, which in retrospect we now know was a man-made environmental disaster, in part because of over-farming combined with extreme weather. So yes, these boards were created because of that, but it was to make sure that we didn't end up in that same problem and that we implemented sustainable regenerative farming practices. Today, as we look around Florida, we see environmental disasters and extreme weather all the time. I don't think that we should be cutting back and restricting in such a severe way these boards. And the language of this bill is incredibly concerning for that. Currently, if you are in the agriculture business, you are welcome to run for office and hope to get elected just like anybody else. And the language in this bill as it is really picks winners and losers of who is even eligible to run. And I don't believe that that is the business that the legislature should be in. So I'm firmly opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Audie Bach is next from Sarasota, speaking against. You recognize. Please try to hold it to 1 minute because we have a lengthy agenda. I'm sorry to impose that on you.
Thank you, Chairman Baxley. Senators, I am a member of the Sarasota Soil and Water Conservation District Board. I am previously a horse breeder and trainer. I am previously an elected member of a fire district board, and I would not be eligible to run for this seat under these new provisions, although I am now in my second term. So I think it's essential to reiterate what previous speakers have said, is that putting these very, very tight restrictions on who can run does away with the whole concept of citizen legislators. We are not paid. We don't even get our expenses reimbursed unless we can raise the money to get our travel expenses reimbursed. So do you have any idea how hard it is to find anybody to run already? There's no pay for this job. Everything's out of pocket. You really have to be a dedicated volunteer public servant to do this. So the fewer restrictions, the better. And the way this was originally designed, there are no restrictions. And yes, it goes back a million years, and I'm grateful to Senator Hudson for trying to figure out something better to fit today's world, but it's already there in what the legislature has put as the purpose of these, which is to serve not just agriculture. And yes, agriculture in Florida is under threat for sure, from a variety of, greening disease and so forth. But this is not the way to address the threats to agriculture. This can only
Senator Hudson, you're recognized to close on the bill as amended. Or we want debate? Any debate on the bill as amended? Seeing no debate, Senator Hudson is recognized to close on the bill as amended.
In the interest of time, I'll just waive close, Mr. Chairman.
Waiving close. Erica, please call the roll. CS for CS, SB 1078.
Senator Berman? No. Senator Bracy?
No.
Senator Bradley?
Yes.
Senator Broxson? Yes. Senator Gaynor?
Yeah, I'm going to vote for this, but I would certainly hope that we would find a different pathway or more pathways for somebody to come in and take leadership.
Senator Garcia? Yes. Senator Polsky?
No.
Vice Chair Tadeo?
No.
Chair Baxley?
Yes.
Yes.
By your vote, committee substitute for committee substitute, Senate Bill 1078 is reported favorably. We'll now take up